Have you been given permission to re-enter to complete your survey?
You didn't ask that. Just be patient, sir.
We have.
Oh,
We've been given permission by the owners.
what?
Yeah, we've been given permission by the owners. I'm just waiting to hear on Monday that the license, as it's called in its final form, has been agreed. But yes.
Do you think they know they're losing?
Being a time scale, they can talk about into 2020,
2019.
19. Will you actually do all the engineering and drawings and development required by that time so you can put it straight in place, or will you start doing after that date? Because that'll push you into another 1-2 years.
We'll do as much as we can in 2019.
No, prior to that.
No, sorry, let me start again. I'm getting my ears mixed up. We will do as much as we can during 2018, sorry. In other words, we will get approval for examination at the end of this year, that's 2017, right?
But you're just talking about the airport at the moment.
No.
You're not talking about the buildings, are you?
No. But I'm just trying to give you a sense of how we can justify doing the work. So, during 2018, when this examination process is going on, we will be doing a lot of the work that you just described, specifying and pricing what we need to do. And the reason that we'll be able to do it is that, look, without wanting to get too complacent, but once you've been accepted for examination, you know that you're going to get the DCO. It's just a question then of what the conditions are going to be. So that enables you to release more funds into the process and start to spread the net, bringing contractors in and having that work done. So by the time we get the DCO itself at the end of 2018, we hope to have done as much work as preliminary work as possible on design, costing and work program, so that we can begin work, let's say at the end of the first quarter of 2019. We've said we're going to take 2 years then before we open the airport. So we won't be opening it until the first phase, which is 8 or 9 parking stands and various buildings, have been completed. Plus we've got to get the place certified and licensed, and we need fire engines and lighting and all that stuff. So that by the end of 2020, it will be ready and open for business. At Dover on Wednesday, we were asked to kind of promise that we'd be able to accommodate all those fat cats flying in for the open in Royal Sandwich in July 2020, and we kind of promised. But that's and technically you don't need a full license as long as you've got safety. So that's basically the position, and I'm sorry, you reminded me of something that I didn't mention. The airspace issue, which involves the CAA, is a separate process. You'll see it when you see the 79 slides. That process will begin in January of next year. There will be a further series of consultations this time next year on the airspace issues. So we'll be back to see everyone all over again. And that has to do with the line of approach, the departure, and so on. The height over various locations, what steps we can take to mitigate the effects, and so on and so on. So that will be a parallel part of the process. It's a very long answer. So.
If I could just ask a quick question. What you've just said, does that mean we can see a red arrow before we first go into final commercial operation?
A red arrow?
Well,
they need to fly, they don't actually land.
Sleep on the wall.
sorry, yes, Julia.
I just want to ask about the DCO. You're going to stick with that, even if Stone Park people say we'll buy it from Stone, but you won't do that now because you need the DCO to be able to do what you're going to do.
No, No, the question was, if they suddenly decided to sell the site, would we carry on with PCO? Yes, because the planning powers in PCO, you've got to have anyway. Because if it's a project of national significance, even if you own the site, you still have to have a PCO. So we'll proceed anyway. It will simplify the process a bit, but it's still the same process.
This goes back to the question you asked about the red arrows. Just make a point to everybody that actually the red arrows do that, and the red arrows come to TG Aviation barbecues. Watch this space.
My question's been answered.
With regard to the future beyond 2020, assuming the DCO is successful, I'm sure River Oak have got their own economic plan for the future. How inclusive will River Oak's attitude be to what the local people want and how they would like Manston to develop?
Well, I think the first thing is this: we will reinstate the consultative committee, which used to exist until a few years ago, which is a very important way of actually staying in touch with the local community. So the representatives of the district councils, the county councils, the parish councils and local interest groups are all invited to attend, and those committees normally meet 4 times a year with a full agenda and so on. And certainly in my experience in the past, it was always a very, very good way of making sure that you were in touch with what the local community wanted.
Chris Wells isn't in touch with what the local community wants.
Sorry?
Chris Wells isn't in touch with what the local community wants.
2019 you'll be gone.
Chris Wells just isn't in touch.
Well, by the time the consultative committee meets, there will have been further elections. But genuinely, if you ask Manchester Airport Group and all the others, the local consultative committee is a vital piece of intelligence gathering and feedback in relation to what the local community wants to see.
Will there be any room in the airfield for National Police Aeronautical Service and for air ambulance if needed? For them to land?
Yes. I mean, we'd like the fire and rescue to come, but it may be too late for that because they appear to have made their investment over at LID. Search and rescue. Yes, they seem to have made their investment at LID now, so that's that. But oh no, absolutely. We're also keen for the flight training school to resume. We also want to have an executive jet facility, and we're also keen for the helicopter operations to expand and actually be better located on the site.
Regarding future links, if you're putting cargo onto trains and to the parkway, the franchise is coming up. One of the 3 that were mentioned that were going for it would be Virgin, which is linked to AG. Is that going to cause a bit of conflict there?
No, because the freight operator will be a different operator. Rail freight isn't run by the same companies that do passenger. So it's a completely different operation. So it won't be. And you know, I mean, again, to be clear about this was raised at our meeting with the category councillors. These are things that we would like to see happen. They're not directly under our control, unfortunately. A rail link to the airport, improving rail freight, getting rail up to somewhere in the London area, and where that might be, nobody seems to know. Or we think it makes a great deal of sense. There's nothing about that in this government document, but it's something that has to happen eventually, because although our research showed that there is still capacity on the M2 and amazingly on the M20, common sense tells you that there will come a point where it becomes a problem. And if you've got a perfectly good railway line next to your airport, common sense tells you you should use it. You know, so we'll do whatever we can to support that.
Are you able to say anything about the
the quality of the consultations that you had with Canterbury Council and also with that council this last year.
No. Look, all I can say to you is this. On Tuesday, we met for 2 hours in a committee room in the Thanet Council offices with the 6 members of the Cabinet and members of the Chief Officer team. On Wednesday, we presented to a full council meeting at Dover, to which all elected members have been invited, because it was a normal council meeting. And actually, the presentation and the questions afterwards, we started at, because we timed it, we started at 10 minutes after 6 and we finished at 7:30. So it was a really good session. And I think the feeling was that members of all parties, of all persuasions in relation to the airport, were able to ask their questions. And that gave, I would suggest, the leadership of Dover a genuine feel for how the members of that authority think. When it came to Canterbury, there was a slightly different approach. The view of the leader there was that because we had a very full presentation both at Herne Bay and at Canterbury, that the most effective way would be to have a briefing session for as many elected members as wanted to attend it. So, and they arranged it in Herne Bay, in the Methodist Church in the centre of Herne Bay. They invited as many members as wanted to come. I've forgotten the exact numbers, but 10 or 12 of them came, of all parties. And again, we had 2 hours, questions and answers, pretty vigorous session, and notes taken on behalf of the leader's office. And we felt that, there'd been a good airing of all the issues. I have to say, the difference with Thanet is that although we have, Sally and I have appeared in front of the Conservative group, with the full knowledge of the Council's officers, back I think in March, we have not been able to engage with the whole Council, which is what we would have liked. And although we do not object, and cannot object to the Cabinet taking responsibility for the final response, it would be our view that democracy would be better served if we could have presented to the whole Council and for the Cabinet to have written its response based on a presentation to the full Council.
Paul?
Is the government aware of the cargo capacity that's in the UK being outstretched to Amsterdam and a lot to Europe? So our capacity in the UK, we can't land cargo in here. It's been landed in Europe, coming across by ferry or rail.
Yes. Southeast capacity. Southeast issue.
So, there have been plenty of reports that should make them. But the question was about demand versus capacity for freight, air freight in the southeast. So the southeast takes 3/4 of all the air freight comes into the southeast, and demand far outstrips capacity, which means that's why we're trucking so much air freight to and from northern European airports that should fly out of the UK when we capture the benefits. And the figures are huge in terms of losses to the UK economy. It was £9.5 billion in 2015, with losses accumulating at 1.1 million an hour until we get additional capacity for air freight. So yes, they are very much aware, and I guess that's behind the policy and why there is now at least some focus on freight. So hopefully that will mean that Manston is considered very, very favourably as a future centre of excellence for air freight in the southeast. We can't get any other runway in the southeast. We've looked at all the other possibilities in the southeast, and there really isn't anywhere that has the length of the runway, the road access, and the facility to develop cargo handling on site, other than Manston.
More questions?
So you were questioned quite harshly by people in Minster who were anti in the statistics you came up with. You were talking about Stansted and you said that the cargo numbers in Stansted were reducing because they wanted to put the passenger numbers up. And there was people came up with numbers which were far different than yours. Have you actually looked at that and gone into that and seen whether you had made a mistake or whether they were right?
So the question's about can Stansted cope with the demand for air freight? It's not just runway capacity. So the people that were bringing this up, and some people have said, oh, we've phoned Stansted. And they said, that's fine, we've got capacity. But of course, what they don't say is what they're flying, what type of aircraft are they flying, what are they carrying, what time of day do they want to land, and what handling do they require. So one of the big problems at Stansted is the handling facilities. There's no room to extend what they have. So, and because their focus is on the owner of Stansted, their focus being on passengers, they need all available space to cope with the increased demand in passengers. So, whilst we're looking at the historic figures, which is what they were looking at, and based on some phone call that they made, can I land? It's a combination of factors that make an airport suitable for freight. And if you fly in a freighter, and of course that's why they're flying often at night, because they can be handled quickly. And not if they come in at Stansted during the day and they get delayed because the handlers move off to unload and unload a passenger aircraft, then they can sit there for such lengthy periods of time that it really negates the benefit of flying. So that's the combination.
At Heathrow, they've been up to 4 days before they've been allowed to unload.
Yeah. So their questioner saying, well, I've phoned Stansted and they've told me I can land, but they haven't specified to Stansted what it is they're flying and what they need at the airport. So it was quite difficult to answer because without telling them, without being unnecessarily rude. Does that help?
No, I just want to have the answers next time because you were there giving us some answers, but you didn't have the figures back to the status quoting figures at you. And when people start quoting figures and you don't have them back, it makes it look as though you're not being able to answer. And I know you can answer it. You can.
Have we got one more question?
How many jobs are you expecting to bring back into Thanet?
How many jobs?
So the question is about jobs. So the total figure over 20 years, so we're hoping that the forecasts show that locally and regionally and nationally it would add up to about 30,000 jobs created. In terms of direct jobs, on the airport side, we're talking about 4,000, just over 4,000 over that 20-year period on the site.
Because at the moment I'm unemployed. I have been for quite a few years. The last security job I had was working on the new road up at Manston, and since then there's been no jobs in Thanet for myself or anyone. I'm just curious to see how long it will be before the jobs start rolling in.
So we would start to employ people even before we open for operations. So probably in the 3 months, 4 months before operation, we will be looking at about 400 staff by the airport operator. And then we would expect by the first year of operation that the total on-site figure would be about 850. And then it wouldn't be perhaps until a little bit later that the supply chain would start to develop and then you get a real ramp up of jobs. But the key point is not just about the jobs created, because airports are renowned for their capacity to create jobs across a wide range of employment types and a wide range of skills. But it's to ensure that we work in conjunction with the colleges and the universities to make sure that local people can acquire the skills needed to apply for those jobs that will be created locally. So that's the key thing that we need to do, to make sure that people of all ages can get the skills required to take the jobs as they're created.
Well, like you say, recruiting locally first. Tony.
Although you recruiting locally first.
Yes.